Hi, everyone. I'm Emily.
And I'm Vince.
And this is the Lighthouse Lowdown. I have a question for you.
Okay. Is it like a... Okay.
Why do dogs float?
Because they bark and bark floats.
Because they're good boys.
Our poor listeners.
I know. I just saw it and decided for our history buoy, the intro into our history buoy, that could just be a little joke time.
Good boys.
Yeah. So today I'm going to do a current event sort of history buoy.
Okay.
Current history buoy.
Nice.
Sanibel Island. You've
Yep.
covered that lighthouse before. I think that was episode 34. We talked about how Hurricane Ian hit it.
Yep.
It was about 16 months ago. And the leg was lost on Sanibel Island Lighthouse. So it has 4 legs, and one of them was knocked out by the keepers' cottages that had swept out of the storm.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Yeah, one of them took out the leg as it was being swept out. So
The keeper's cottage. I'm nothing without you.
trying to cling on. Wait, help me.
Yeah. But it was
But-
still standing.
Yes, and as of January 23rd, they replaced the leg. Finally, it has all 4 legs. Originally, it had a wooden leg for
Nice.
the past 16 months, and now it has officially had its cast iron leg put back on. And they actually used the pieces from the old leg to make a mold for the new leg. So, yes, Sanibel.
It's pretty cool. Ye old peg leg.
Yeah,
Cool. So that's a nice little update.
yeah.
Do you have any photos to show?
Do you have a photo?
Oh, yeah.
On the left is a picture of the wooden leg that it had for a long time.
That is a nice wood leg.
Yeah, they did a good job on it. They actually cared. And then the cast iron leg being put on January 23rd
Awesome.
of this year. Yep.
Cool.
I think after this, they're going to focus on doing like a recoating of the outside and the inside of the lighthouse. But they don't have any plans right now to replace the cottages, which is kind of a big bummer.
Mm.
It would be a
Yeah.
huge undertaking, and I don't know, it would just be...
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what a cottage is, whatever that English is valued in its history and
Yeah,
serving,
exactly.
not necessarily what it does today.
Like it still has
Yeah.
its historical value and everything, but they'd be replicas. They wouldn't be like restored
Yeah.
versions. I don't know. There's value in rebuilding, but I don't know how much effort they'd want to put towards that when they're still trying to recover from
Yeah.
such a hurricane.
Can you remember what this type of tower is called? I can't. Where it's got the
Skeleton.
skeleton tower.
Yeah.
I feel like there's another descriptor I'm trying to think of
Well.
where that, the cylinder that is the stairwell and,
Oh yeah, the center
I don't
column.
know. Yeah. Pretty
I
cool
don't
though.
know. I gave you an answer, so take it or leave
That's
it.
probably the right answer.
Okay, so that was my history buoy. A little bit of current history for you. And speaking of storm damage, I'm going to launch into my episode today. The only reason I've been seeing this lighthouse, it's actually all over my feed right now because of something that's happened recently.
Oh no.
Another January event that I will be talking about later. But we're going to be heading to Bristol, Maine. So another Maine lighthouse. I'm going crazy on Maine lighthouses. It's not my fault. They just show up, okay? Most of the lighthouses that I cover, they just fall into my lap somehow. Like it's a listener suggestion or there's like current events going on or something like that.
Yeah.
So usually I'm not researching lighthouses to cover. They just kind of fall into my lap.
You mentioned that, but you couldn't say anything else. What else is there to say?
What are you talking about?
I mean, around the house.
Oh.
Before this episode.
Oh, yeah. So Bartholomew Gosnold sailed to the coast of Maine in 1602 for areas to settle. And I looked into this guy just before we started recording because I was going to leave it at that. Like he came here and found that it was already like a popular fishing spot for like Native Americans and like European people had already come over here. It's like, it's not the first time Europeans have come over, but it was the first, when he came over here in 1602, it was the first official recorded European excursion to Cape Cod, which is so weird because Vince and I are planning a Cape Cod trip right now. We've decided that we're going to go to Cape Cod.
Cape Cod.
Yeah.
To see the lighthouses.
So what a weird thing. He's the one who named it Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, who is Martha?
Martha was his deceased daughter, who was named
Oh.
after his wife's mom.
That's sad.
And when they crossed it, it was uninhabited, and it was covered in wild grapes. So we called it Martha's Vineyard.
That's really cool.
Really awesome. And Cape Cod was because there was a ton of fish.
A bunch of cod.
So anyway, he was considered instrumental to the founding of the Virginia Company and Jamestown because he was like the go-to guy for boating excursions.
I don't know the Virginia Company. Should I?
Do you not watch Pocahontas? Disney's Pocahontas?
I've seen it when I was a child.
Virginia Company.
You have to remind me.
That's
That's like an exploratory group, or they're shipbuilders, or
I want to say that I actually don't know. I just know that they were behind sending everyone to
is it a dark
like
history?
John Smith off to,
Is it a dark history?
I don't think it's very good, yeah.
So, Bart.
So Bart just noted that he came across Pemaquid Point, which is what we're going to be covering today.
Okay.
And it was already like inhabited with very friendly Native Americans who had come across Europeans already and knew like how to trade. Like they had furs and they were really friendly. And actually Bartholomew was the one who destroyed that sort of good feelings. So by the time that the Mayflower came, things were very hostile with Native Americans because of how he treated them.
Bart.
So Bart. Shameful behavior. Pemaquid Point was popular for fishing and stuff, but they didn't get a lighthouse until 2 centuries after that. So it's like a slow settling sort of thing and really just became...
This is a Native American inhabited area?
I assume pretty much everything was at the time.
Right, but okay, you're saying it was fishing, so it was like settlers were...
Yeah, it was like a spattering. It wasn't like
okay.
an official settlement or anything like that, but then over time, over the course of 2 centuries, it became something where they needed to add a lighthouse.
Gotcha.
So we got Pemaquid Point. $4,000 was set aside for the light station. It was a rubblestone tower, which
Cool.
we don't have good history of rubblestone lasting very long. A keeper's cottage with an enormous kitchen is what was mentioned.
Nice.
I don't know what the purpose of that was, but I actually have a picture. Here's
Wow.
Pemaquid, the station. So it's really cool. In this picture, you can see keeper's cottage, the tower, and then in the back is the Fog Bell station.
First off, I like the Fog Bell Station.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I like the fence, their white picket fence.
Yep.
Seems entirely unnecessary. They spent some time on it. And then look at the ocean. Scary.
Yeah, very rough ocean area. And this cliff is like pretty sloped, but I'm pretty sure it's like 40 feet tall.
Okay. So from this perspective, it looks like nothing.
Yeah, it looks like we're right on the edge of the water, but
Yeah.
there's some distance. But
All right.
even the picket fence is right up on the edge of where the rocks and
Mm-hmm.
like the cliff stuff starts.
Holding
so.
in the civilization.
Especially the like Foghorn building. Look at that. It's pretty close.
Just like it's photoshopped floating out there.
That's I know. I think it's because the chimney looks like it's going underneath of it.
Yeah.
What is it? Perspective.
Yeah.
This is the current tower. It's not the one that we got in 1827. They bid it out in 1826, and I found a picture.
Whoa, that's cool.
Of the newspaper clipping that was put out, like trying to get a bid or trying to bid construction for this lighthouse. So
1826.
Isn't that crazy? December 22nd. And they kind of just say what they're looking for, and somebody is like, I'll bid on it for this much.
That's nuts.
Isn't that crazy? Like, what a weird, casual way to have something like this constructed.
That's crazy. I'm trying to read this part. Covered
Yes.
with copper as well as the something into. I'm sorry, I couldn't read it. I thought I was going to be able to read it.
As well as the rabbit it shuts into.
Maybe some
Sort of
some time
term we
to
don't
do this.
understand. Yeah. I couldn't
The
read.
walls of the
I-
tower to be well pointed and whitewashed twice over, outside and inside.
Laid a deek of
Soapstone.
So the E's gone.
I wonder if there's any typos. That's a deck. And
Oh,
they're like, damn it.
good work.
Or if a deek is a word I don't know from the year 1826.
I think deck is probably right. We don't need to sit here and try and decipher
it's pretty
this
cool
whole
though.
thing, but
Sorry.
yeah, it is very cool. I got that from the USLHS as per usual. So construction was completed in November of the next year, $500 under budget,
Whoa.
and the fixed white light went into service. But unfortunately, this tower only lasted 8 years before they needed a new one. And they put the reasoning that salt water had somehow gotten into the mortar before it was applied to the lighthouse.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of crumbled.
Did we talk about this before with a different lighthouse?
I bet. I think all of the towers we've covered so far that have been rubblestone have not lived for very long.
There's another, I can't tell you all the details, but there's more construction of lighthouses that I'm doing research on.
Oh, yeah?
In the past. And talking about seawater in the concrete will be something that comes up again. Or the cement, I guess. But
okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, we might have talked about it before, but. So they built a new tower. It was conical granite, white, and a little bit like Ocracoke-esque is what I kind of think of when I look at it.
White and chubby.
Yeah, like lumpy.
American.
Affectionately, we say lumpy. But it's 30 feet to the lantern deck. I think I read that it was 38 feet total.
Okay.
And it had an octagonal lantern room. And the current keeper, Dunham, said, "A better tower and lantern never was built in this state." And then he also said, "Also the lamps, reflectors, and apparatus is according to contract."
Oh.
Oh my God. Why even throw it? He's like, "This is the best tower of all time." And also the lamps are fine.
Like the lamps are,
like you don't
they
have to
didn't go
mention
above and beyond, I guess.
So here's an old photo. I didn't read a lot about anything other than chickens being raised on this land, but I'll mention later that it was very fertile soil. So
okay,
there's a lot of vegetable and farming going on here.
Nice little property.
Yeah, and this actually is a picture of the keeper's cottage before they painted it. I think they painted it in 1875 to be white, which is what it is today. But
was that brick probably?
Mm-hmm. So Keeper Dunham was the first keeper of this lighthouse and served at Pemaquid Point for a decade before he went back to farming, which is what he was doing before this. His sixth child, Benjamin Franklin Dunham, was born in the station. And when his father died shortly after the new tower was constructed, and he died inside the station. So I don't really have the details.
On duty?
Yeah, well, it was his dad.
Oh.
The keeper's dad. So I don't know if he went there for like care or if he was just like visiting and something happened. But he was buried in a small cemetery near the light. And by looking at the Dunham Family History newsletter, I found out that it was called Curtis Cemetery. And I can't find it on Google Maps, but I'm going to trust them. They probably know what they're talking about.
It's probably on the property? Or you said it's close by?
It just says close, so I don't know.
Well, back then, close was really close.
Yeah, like in the backyard. So Keeper Dunham was mentioned a lot because he, first of all, was the first keeper here for a whole decade. And also because he patented a way to keep the whale's oil in the lamp from coagulating or congealing in the winter. And Congress ordered the Treasury to start implementing it in lighthouses.
Oh, cool.
But we don't really know exactly how much it was adopted or even what his patent was.
Really?
It was like, yeah, it's like you can't find it. You know that it happened, but can't find the history of. Huh. I've seen several sources that say there's no record of how well it was implemented, and then another one was like, we don't know what it was.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, patents have a pretty good history.
I know.
There's so many records. That was what kind of oil?
Whale's oil in this lighthouse.
I wonder if that's why it didn't matter. It's because it changed. The fuel source changed.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know the full history of that.
Like maybe they found that if it wasn't whale's oil, if it was something else, some other kind of oil, it didn't work as well or wasn't necessary or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, because whale's oil was kind of dropped off pretty quick, wasn't it?
I don't know the history. I think so.
I'll have to do that again.
I think it was replaced with kerosene.
Yeah, I covered beacons in like my second episode. But that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I know there's been several fuel oils.
Yeah.
Of different types.
Definitely.
But
Isaac, who was Keeper Dunham, also built barns on the property. I'm not sure if they're still there. I didn't see them in the picture, so I'm not really sure. But he built barns and kept chickens and grew vegetables and everything. And he was actually paid by the next keeper $1,100 for the buildings he built as keeper. So it was like, was he going to tear them down? Or maybe the new keeper was grateful, and so he paid him like, I'm paying for extra buildings.
Sounds like a lot of money.
Yeah, I know. $1,100 in like the mid 1800s is
It's
quite
weird.
a lot of money.
It's weird for an individual like the keeper to take responsibility and build these things.
Yeah.
When it's a government job, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
A government property.
I feel like keepers aren't often, well, gosh, I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Gonna say it's
Like
not like they're
later on-
fired often, but they are
Yeah.
placed somewhere else often. So
Well, and later in history, I was talking about some of the readings I did for the West Coast Lighthouse Board, lighthouse establishment, I guess. The board was writing some of those letters.
yeah.
And how they were, under inspection, and it was like a military placement. You
Right.
shall sell the ox for at least $100 and
Yeah,
send
right.
the send the funds in the
a lot
mail.
of manhandling.
Yeah, no, do whatever you want to do. Just
Well, if
have
it
fun.
if it benefited them, although they didn't get the money, so
That's what I'm
I
saying.
don't
It's
know. Yeah,
government
it's a weird.
government property, but you're building your own barn on it, and then it's sold to another man who's taking the job. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't even think
interesting.
about that.
There's probably more to it.
Yeah, I bet so.
Secrets.
So he returned to farming in 1836, but returned 3 years later to be the first keeper of Nauset Light.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, when it was still three sisters.
Very cool. Dunham.
Is it Dunham?
I don't know. There's Jeff Dunham, who's a comedian. It's pronounced Dunham, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, you could be right then.
It's like
Apologies to the
Eastham
Dunham.
and Chatham and all these towns we're
I
trying
know,
to
but
learn
like
about
I
on Cape
said,
Cod.
one of them was not pronounced that way.
Eastham.
Or maybe
Chatham.
Chatham.
We'll find out.
I know. I'm excited. 1857, the Light gained a fourth order Fresnel lens. And it was actually after, there's a little picture of it still in action today.
Nice.
It was after some guy who was notorious for crapping on inspection reports. He just came and was just like, everything sucks here. This is, he was really picky. He was
Really
like,
picky. Yeah.
He came and said a lot of nice things about the lighthouse, but then I didn't make any notes about this. I don't know why I didn't. He said the purpose of the lighthouse was like obsolete. It was like, why do we have this? He never said to take it out of commission, but he was like,
Rude.
I would recommend moving it from 10 reflectors to 1. Like, he was like, this thing, it looks great, but I don't know why it's here. So
That's weird.
yeah, and then they gave it a fourth order lens, so they upped it in candle power. I don't.
Was there any way that, because I haven't read this, I have to ask.
Yeah.
That you might have read it, like interpreted it to where he's saying the 10 reflectors is not necessary. It needs to be one of larger magnitude, or
No,
a singular.
he was saying there was a new lighthouse that was built nearby. You couldn't really see this light until you had gotten a certain point, like around the land, and he was just basically saying, I don't know why we have this. And then after that, it was interpreted for me. It was kind of like, instead of suggesting that they get rid of the light, he said we should lower the candle power if you're gonna keep it.
And then someone said, nah.
Yeah, and someone said, actually,
increase
we need more power.
Double it and give it to the next guy.
So that's how we ended up with our fourth order lens.
Very
Can't
cool.
complain. Still working today. So Keeper Dunham was one of the very few head keepers that were at this lighthouse. And that was because, like I mentioned, it had very fertile soil. So it was great for home living. I mean, people brought their families here and then wanted to settle down. Like they weren't looking to go somewhere else. This was like a great place to have a family and to grow crops and have livestock and everything. I read that the people who worked on the lighthouse tenders hated this station because there was nowhere to dock a lighthouse tender. And so they'd have to pull up somewhere and like carry all the supplies that were to be delivered to the lighthouse like, from down below. I mean, it's surrounded by this very strange sloping cliff.
Yeah, but how are you gonna build a stair or a ramp into that cliff?
Yeah,
like,
and
and then a dock at the bottom.
Yeah, in normal cliffs they would use a crane or whatever it's called, derrick, to pull stuff up, and they can't do that because it's so sloped. You'd be dragging. I feel like they should have built one of those like the tramways that we talked about in Split Rock.
Yeah, it'd still be costly and difficult. Even if you're talking about a pier way, like a pier way, a pier where a boat is going to dock. Oh my gosh, my English is broken.
You don't have your coffee.
My dock is going to dock, but You have to have those piers go into the sea floor. And if that rock keeps going, then
true.
good luck. Yeah, that's funny though. Lighthouse tenders. I don't know that we've talked a lot about lighthouse tenders having opinions.
Yeah, it was one of the few times that I've actually seen commentary about it. It must have been pretty widespread that people are like, oh no, we're delivering to Pemaquid. Sucks. 1897, a brick engine house was built for a new fog bell, which replaced the small one that had to be rung by hand. Oh. So it was supposed to be like it was like a steam-powered striking mechanism. But it had to have been problematic in some way because it was only 2 years later that they built the fog bell tower that we have today, which was run by weights, which is, that like white pyramid that was at the front.
Yeah.
That housed the
clockwork,
the weights that went up and down for the bell. And I actually found a picture of it in my Maine Lighthouses, Documentation of Their Past by J. Candace Clifford and Mary Lewis Clifford.
Cool.
This is the book that I got from the United States Lighthouse Society.
What's the USLHS?
Listen to our last episode, episode 45.
Thanks.
I'll just show you a little picture. They have a diagram that was donated from the U.S. Coast Guard, I think, but a picture of how the whole fog bell tower was built.
Wow. So there's a hand-drawn sketch, plans for a fog bell tower to be built on Pemaquid Point, drawings courtesy of U.S. Coast Guard. As an engineer, I'm very intrigued by this.
Isn't it the weirdest setup? Like, it's...
The bell is outside, unprotected.
Yes.
Which is kind of surprising. And then there's...
But you can't, the sound won't travel unless you have it.
It's facing the water. There's a dugout gutter called out below the building. And then this tower we've talked about has all this bracing. And the weight is on a pulley system. So I assume you pull it up, you load it, if you will.
Yes.
And then it would fall.
Wind the mechanism.
And I'm missing some component of rotation that would go strike the bell. Or maybe the bell would move back and forth.
Oh, I don't know.
The little, I don't know what it's called, the hammer,
it said one
the ball
ring,
on the inside.
I think it was supposed to be a striking. It's like a mallet, yeah. But I don't think it shows how the pulley system
it's like a
cocks
sledgehammer.
it back and hits it.
I'd be fascinated. I like mechanical
We
things.
should look it up. I think that's probably something we should cover.
But yeah, this is a really cool image. If I
think it said it struck every 10 seconds when it was wound.
Wow.
I don't know how often it needed to be wound up, but it's pretty cool.
That is cool. Man, the work that people had to do something like that.
I know.
That is wild to me.
That would be crazy. And them just building it and be like, all right, here's how you operate it. And it's like, okay, I can't ask anybody else about this.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to call some toll-free number and be like, I'm having a problem with my bell tower.
Yeah. Send it back to Amazon.
So yeah, that's the house that we see today. And I'm going to be talking about it a little bit later as well. Somewhere around this time, they added brick veneer to the inside of the light tower. I don't know what brick veneer is.
Well, veneer in general is like a casing.
Facade? Oh.
Yeah, it's a thin layer that covers things.
Okay.
So it's often used to make them look nicer. It's not structural usually.
Okay, it's like teeth. Veneers.
Veneer teeth, yeah.
Okay.
But why would they, and veneer teeth are a layer over your teeth.
Yeah.
That's false.
Purely.
And aesthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
visual.
Why would they, I mean, you can do like cheap home renovation backsplash veneer.
Was it really just for looking nice, or
maybe it was deteriorating as a way to seal
they just
it?
Covered it, yeah.
Kind of air quotes waterproof it again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I didn't look too deep into it, but at the same time, they also added a cast iron spiral staircase, so that was pretty cool. And these were restored in 2010. They did a big restoration. So
this is when they did the veneer and staircase.
No, that was sometime around almost 1900.
Okay, but that cast iron is still there.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's another thing to learn more about because that's in a lot of lighthouse towers, these cast iron stair treads and handrails and stuff.
Yeah.
For some reason, that's fascinating because it's
I
super
would love
heavy.
to know who built them. Where did you order? You had to order the stairs from somewhere because they're pretty intricate usually. They're not just pieces of cast iron. They're really
ornate.
nice. Yeah.
Well, remember Cape Disappointment, the Oriole, the ship that wrecked called the Oriole, had like several lantern rooms and all of the cast iron in it.
Oh,
or
yeah.
stair towers and railings and stuff.
Mhm.
Boom, just into the ocean. And it had come. I love Cape Disappointments over on the West Coast for you who don't know. And I think all of that had come from Boston or somewhere up northeast. So it had come all the way around.
Oh, yeah. I remember
and
you
then
saying that.
wrecked.
Tragic.
Order all new irons again.
Oh, just had to have been so... There's nothing to do about it. It's just...
Awful.
So Pemaquid Point was one of the first lighthouses in Maine to transition to automatic.
Mm.
And this was in 1934, so before the Coast Guard even took over, which is like really early. There's not a lot of lighthouses mentioned that go fully automatic.
Interesting. Yeah, that's really
the Coast
early.
Guard. Yeah. And it was around this time also that the light was switched to a flashing white. And I couldn't find the exact date for that unless I'm misinterpreting the USLHS light list. I think, yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was around the same time that it went flashing. A few years after that, actually a year after the Coast Guard took over, Bristol residents voted to purchase the station besides the light, which remained with the Coast Guard, and paid the government $1,639 over a period of 4 years so that they could own it. And then it was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1985.
Nice.
And I found a picture of the application for that. And it's just a lot simpler than I expected it to be for some reason.
You know,
there's not really much to it.
Yeah, it's a nice little form.
Yeah.
It's stamped, received February 2nd or 22nd, I guess.
Yeah. And then April 16th was when it was entered as like a historic places protection thing.
I thought about this. I don't mean to take anything away from Pemaquid. Pemaquid?
Yeah.
That sounds wrong to me every time I say it. I'm reading it on screen.
I looked it up
Pemaquid.
and it says Pemaquid. So
not to take anything away from Pemaquid Point, but there's got to be so many dang places, including lighthouses, on the National Register of Historic Places. And I did wonder how that works and what it means for protection and for renovation and things. Because every lighthouse that we mention it, like, oh, this is a National Historic Place. It's like, wow. But I never think about what that means.
Just like, and this is when it was added. You know, it's like, it's sort of a given.
Of course it is, yeah.
Lighthouses to be added. Like, to go a step further than that is whenever you get, what is it called?
Like preservation?
It's a landmark, something. National Historic Landmark.
Okay.
That's like the special one when most places are already a national, like, registered.
They're places.
Yes, then it goes a step further by being a National Historic Landmark. I mean, I think that's the one where you're like one of the big dogs.
Interesting.
So anyway, thought it was cool. The tower itself was licensed to the American Lighthouse Foundation in 2000. So the Coast Guard licensed it to this foundation. After the 2000 was like some kind of, it's like Maine lighthouse law or something that was passed.
Y2K.
I can't remember exactly what it was. But they had a couple of restorations over the years. In 2007 for the exterior and 2010 for some of the internal components, which I talked about earlier. But in 2007, they found a hidden window while redoing the exterior. And I couldn't find a picture online, but they said it was well documented. They said the masons noticed the granite work closing the window was of poorer quality than the original work, meaning that it was done later for some unknown reason. So they just recovered it back up whenever they did the restoration.
They uncovered the window?
Uncovered it, found it, and then recovered it when they did, like, were doing all the work.
They're like,
there's probably good reason for this.
Bad vibes. It's a haunted window.
So covered it back up, and I couldn't find a photo. I'm sure if I sent some emails, I'd be able to hunt one down. But
I wonder if it's like a little port window or something.
I don't know. It didn't specify if it was identical to other windows. And, like, you know, a lot of times they covered up windows that were sea facing that would get hit with like waves and bad weather and would break all the time. So then they would just be like, okay, we don't need it. Just cover it up.
Yeah.
So maybe it was something like that.
Interesting.
I think they said it was an east facing window. So Pemaquid Point still running today. White flash every 6 seconds from their 4th order lens, still up there. And it's featured on the state quarter.
No way.
Yeah. Maine quarter has Pemaquid Point on it.
Wow. That's cool.
Isn't that awesome?
I've never seen that before.
I know. Now I really want one. And I
Gotta
feel
go
like
to
I've
Maine.
seen it before, but before I became lighthouse crazy, maybe I wouldn't really pay attention. I'm gonna be looking through all my quarters now, trying to find Pemaquid.
Well, they did a good job, actually.
Yeah, it looks great.
It looks very realistic and accurate. The fence is right, of course.
They always
the
do a really good
stone-
job on the quarters with detail.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you look at a quarter, they're always like, even the eagle on like the normal one is really nice.
Well, but I mean, this is not only is this highly featured, but it's accurate. Look at the
Yes,
stone
yeah.
striations.
Oh, they're missing the pyramid column on the fog house.
I can't believe it.
Absolutely
You know,
critiqued.
Someone
we're
had
done.
to fight to the death to get that picket fence right. And then the
Oh,
stonework, they had to like,
I cannot believe they put
the quarter
every
making
little
mint.
post.
they're like
They had to,
we
yeah,
have to have this.
brickwork. Oh, God.
We have to have this. The little evergreen tree.
Yeah, they
Cool.
went all out, but
That's really neat.
added birds and everything.
1820.
They're pretty cool. I got to keep my eye out now for one of those quarters. So back to the reason why I kept seeing this lighthouse all over my feed. This is like another current event thing. January 10th of this year, 2024.
Bad year
A-
so far.
Well, for lighthouses, yeah, maybe a little. A huge storm hit the coast of Maine. I don't know if you heard anything about it.
No.
I think just because I follow a lot of lighthouses on Instagram, I saw a bunch of it. But there were 79-mile-per-hour winds and a storm surge of up to 5 feet on top of an already historically high tide. So it was like a new moon or something, and they were like, oh, we have got really, really strange high tides. And then they found out that there was going to be a big storm hitting, and they were like, oh boy, there's going to be some serious flooding.
Yeah.
Because I'll show you on this graph, but there was supposed to be flooding even with just the high tide. Like the tide was so high that it was going to be flooding, and then you add a 5-foot storm surge, and suddenly everything is flooded.
5 feet is a lot of water elevation.
Yeah. So here's a picture. Shows areas of minor flooding, moderate, and major flooding.
Groovy.
The blue is what they predicted this high tide was going to be. So you can see some of them are already in minor flooding area. And then the red is where we had after the storm. So it was really, really bad news for...
Oh, these are days. Oh, no.
Yeah. Because after that, there was the storm January 10th. January 13th, a storm of very similar intensity hit back to back. Like right after that, they got 2 storms. So a lot of lighthouses took damage, and they did this whole...
I might have listened in on this.
Yeah, you might
episode.
have. It was a huge deal. They did... I mean, there's still so much work and cleanup and restorations to be done because of these back-to-back storms. But
Awful.
because of the combination of high winds and the crazy tide, there was these ginormous waves hitting areas that weren't well equipped for getting hit with waves, because normally the water's not up that high. And that included Pemaquid Point Lighthouse, which is far up enough that maybe they don't get as much of this like crazy weather when there are storms. So the tower itself remained unscathed, but the fog bell house was severely damaged. I got a picture. It's like half of its walls are missing.
Oh, my gosh.
I know, isn't that awful?
That's terrible. I bet there's rocks and all sorts
Shingles torn up. They have pictures of from the back. You can see just the sunlight coming through. It's really wild.
That's crazy. There's 2 of the 4 walls are gone.
Mm-hmm. You
The
can even
roof
see
is
damage to the
damaged.
keeper's house in the back parts of the slating side. Like the siding is gone. And
That is epic.
yeah, took some serious damage. Luckily, the bell, the one that was forged in 1840s, was not damaged. You can see where it would be hanging up at the front of the lighthouse or the fog tower. Wasn't damaged because they removed it because the wood was rotting.
Okay.
And so they removed it earlier in the year in August, I think.
Wow.
And so it wasn't like a subject of damage for the storm.
Is that the bell there inside?
That's, I think, either a replica or I don't know.
I assume today this is used for an exhibit space.
Yeah, you can go in and look at it. But
I mean, not currently, but
yeah.
Man, that sucks.
Yeah, so this was January 10th when this happened, and they knew 3 days later they were going to get another storm. So they were like, we're going to be hauling ass trying to get this protected so that it's like not just open, getting hit with the same kind of storm. It's still there after the 13th storm. So
someone in a coat there in the photo. Gives it a little bit of scale.
They sent a lot of people out.
Yeah.
Do a lot of assessments. I actually have a picture of it. They did a damage assessment by helicopter because a lot of lighthouses in Maine are like out on islands or like
Cool.
on
Yeah.
points and stuff that are not very accessible. So they sent, and I have the track, the helicopter went to each lighthouse and like circled it, taking photos and like figuring out how extensive the damage was. So they can kind of get a plan for how they're going to start restoring all of the lighthouses. And it's like 23 lighthouses they checked on, and I'm pretty sure nearly all of them have taken damage, some degree or another. And the USLHS made a video, along with the American Lighthouse Foundation. I think they teamed up and made a video that was just kind of showing, like, we need your help. Things like this was really bad for lighthouses, and like we're losing history.
Yeah.
We have to protect it. We need to raise money. So I have the link to that video, and I'm going to put it in the show notes, and then you and I can watch it if you want to. But it's really sad.
Well, lighthouses, man, in the state that we're in, they already need support just to be maintained, let alone, facing storms and events like this.
Yeah.
That is really unfortunate.
It's awful, and there's nothing you can really do about it. I mean, it's not because of negligence or anything. It's just being so close to the water. Sometimes freak storms happen, and
it's in some way it's a sense of respect for lighthouses in their historical role, because maybe not a storm like that, but maybe you'd lose a couple ships of people to accidents if they didn't have use of a lighthouse.
Yeah.
Throughout all of history. That's a very broad statement. But yeah, they're not in very protected places usually.
Yeah.
So this is the helicopter route?
Yeah, this is a picture of the helicopter route, and Pemaquid Point is on there. But there's all over the place, especially all these that are really far out. And if they didn't do this, you would only hear from word of mouth from the keepers or whoever goes out there to check what was the damage that was done to this light all the way out, Mount Desert Rock. Like, what happened out there? I don't know. We're gonna have to go check. So
they went to 23 lights.
Total distance of 242.58 miles.
That's crazy. That's cool. They did that. We can
watch the video after this that shows all the pictures taken of. I think it's like a 3.5-minute video.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
But yeah, that's how I knew about Pemaquid Point and why I decided to cover it. It's because really, it didn't number on Maine lighthouses. This storm, the series of storms. So they're pretty desperate to start raising money. I think they're doing an official disaster assessment to see like what the damage is besides lighthouses. The government's doing a disaster assessment. So then we can find out more about what it's going to take to fix everything and rebuild. Because I know even in some places there's a lot of history that was lost in this storm, like historical boathouses, and like some fishing shacks. I heard there was only 3 left in this town, and there used to be a bunch, but like one by one they've just been knocked out, and this storm took out all 3, so they didn't have no more of these fishing shacks that were like, they said there was a lot of revenue brought to the city because people would get married here and take pictures in front of them, like for their wedding party and stuff. I'm like, oh my God. And there's nothing you can do to take it back. It's like, okay, I guess that's over. Let's see, rebuild them, but it's not the same.
Yeah, there's something different about that. Preservation versus replica.
Yeah. It's a sad note, but that's Pemaquid Point Lighthouse.
Yeah, well, I'm glad it's still there. And
yes, that is the
lighthouse itself. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm going to talk now. The lighthouse itself in that photo didn't look too damaged.
No.
Compared to the fog tower.
It stayed sturdy. Yeah, I think most of the damage that they found and recorded were not to lighthouse towers. There's some, but not like it's no towers unsalvageable or anything.
No legs missing.
Yeah. They've seen worse.
Well, the Atlantic Ocean, it's one of those big ones.
Mm-hmm. One of the big ones.
Things like this happen. Well, cool. Good coverage.
Yeah, thank you.
I know 2 of our close friends who may be on this podcast at some point have visited Maine. And Alan has talked to me about going up there. He really liked it. Mm-hmm. And you and I looked at Acadia National Park recently when I was kind of clicking around.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful, that whole area.
I would love to go to Maine. That'd be so much fun.
Yep. I'll probably talk about it in our lighthouse tourism, which may or may not be an upcoming episode.
Excellent. I'm very excited. I guess I don't have anything to add on top of that. Check out our Instagram. We got some cool pictures on there. We got a YouTube where you can watch as we talk through everything in the episode visually, which is kind of nice. I don't know. You got anything to add?
No, YouTube is my thing I spend most of my time
Realm.
on, and I really appreciate everybody that's checking us out there.
Yeah.
That's all I ask, is just check it out.
Yeah.
We put a lot of hours into this show, so I appreciate it. And then the other thing I do is LinkedIn, and so far I haven't really done anything with LinkedIn, but someone reached out to us recently on YouTube. They made a comment and said, hey, I was actually a part of, I'm going to misquote her, but forgive me. She was a part of East Brother Light.
Yeah, she was the keeper at East Brother Light Station during the COVID times. Yeah. And they lost power for months, I think. Yeah,
she had to deal with some stuff. I asked that she reach out to our email to talk to us. But I also looked her up on LinkedIn, and it's fun because it's like, that's my idea with LinkedIn, is that it's going to be a way that we can be professional in approaching people in the Lighthouse community, rather than, me on Facebook or via an email, true. Just a random guy on an email. I can say, well, this is what we do. Here's our little profile.
Yeah.
And either way, so it's been fun to have that. And there's about 300 people that are following us on LinkedIn. So.
And aside from the professional stuff, it's always nice whenever listeners just message us on Instagram, like send us a DM for anything at all, or you can send us an email, thelghthouselowdown@gmail.com, or you can go to our website. There's a way for you to leave notes there that'll go straight to our emails, or you can leave a voicemail, which is always fun. We've gotten a couple of those now. But yeah, we love to get messages from people. We get a lot of fun stuff. And hey, since we're going to Cape Cod, if you have any suggestions for places we could go look, please do let us know. I'm overrunning our trip with stamps. USLHS passport stamps.
We'll talk about it. I think I'm pretty certain I'm going to cover lighthouse tourism as an episode.
You think you'll cover how we're preparing for our Cape Cod trip?
Yeah, and we'll
that's a great idea.
Probably ask for some more input at that time.
Yeah.
So
we're super excited. We can't wait to go.
Yep.
Thanks for joining. We hope everyone had a great time, and come back and listen to us again soon at the Lighthouse Lowdown.